Chapter 8. In January of the following year, 1900, there was excitement at Haskell. The whole school was preparing to entertain important visitors. They were the famous football players from the Indian School of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. In the small boys' dormitory, Jimmy sat polishing his shoes. Jonas shined the brass buttons on his jacket. Miss Howlett walked through the room to make sure each boy was ready for the parade. "Don't rumple your uniforms," she cautioned. "There isn't time to send them back to the tailor shop for pressing." Jimmy rubbed and rubbed on his shoes. He didn't want to look shabby in such an important parade. "I think that's enough, Jimmy," said Miss Howlett, smiling. "You'll wear those shoes out." Jimmy started on his buttons. "I don't see why the team is coming all the way from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, just to visit here," said John. "It seems to me—" "But they're not," Jimmy said excitedly. "They're on their way home from California." "California," said John. "That's the truth," said Jimmy. "Chauncey told me about it. They beat the University of California on Christmas Day." "That's right," chimed in Jonas. "First they beat some of the big schools in the East, then they were invited to California, and they beat them too, the best in the West. And some of the Carlisle players were chosen for the All-American teams," added Jimmy. "They take only the best in the whole country. Surely they must all be great chiefs to do such things," John said wonderingly. "Can you get to be a great chief by being a famous athlete?" Jimmy asked himself. He had always thought of sports as the greatest fun, but perhaps they were important too, like schoolwork and hunting and farming. If the Carlisle team traveled all the way to California to play, and if Haskell was turning out for a big parade in Carlisle's honor— Blackhawk was a great athlete, Jimmy remembered. In the annual ball game of the Sac and Fox tribe, he was always a leader, and his side always won. "Hey, Jimmy," Jonas called. "You'll never get finished if you sit there daydreaming." Jimmy jumped. Hurriedly, he went back to shining his buttons. The next morning, school closed early. Promptly at 10:30, all the pupils assembled at the chapel steps. Mr. Buke, the band leader, called the musicians to attention, and the other pupils lined up in marching order. Mr. Buke waved his baton, and the band struck up the Haskell song. The musicians marked away, and the pupils followed, joining in the song. "We will love our own dear colors, their honor will uphold, while the redskin stands defender of the purple and the gold." All around the circle they marched. On the steps of the office building stood the visitors. Mr. Piers was there too, with a welcoming committee from Haskell. "Look how big they are," whispered Iggy, nudging Jimmy. "Eyes front," Jimmy whispered sternly, but he too wanted to see the men on the steps. The band changed to the Carlisle song, and then everyone marched into the auditorium. A minute later, the visitors and their hosts trooped onto the stage. Chauncey was one of the welcoming committee. He had been elected captain of the Haskell football team for the 1900 season. Jimmy thought proudly, "I guess Chauncey is good enough to play with Carlisle if he wanted to. Haskell is lucky to have him." Mr. Piers introduced the president of Carlisle, the famous Dr. Carlos Manzuna, and as he looked at the tall, handsome Apache, Jimmy remembered what Pa had said. Times had changed for the Indian people, but there was still much for a brave to do. "I bet Charlie would have grown up to be a college president," Jimmy thought sadly. Dr. Manzuma told of his experiences as an orphan boy, of his struggle to get an education, and then he introduced the coach of the Carlisle football team, Pop Warner. "We've got a lot of good fortune in my very first season," said the stocky, black-haired man. "We've won a lot of games, and it is a great pleasure to work with the Indian boys." All the pupils clapped their hands. "My boys are not just football players," Mr. Warner went on. "Most of them excel in other sports. You don't find that in most colleges. Now I want you to meet our All-Americans. It's very unusual for All-Americans to be selected from any but the biggest universities in the East, so we are especially proud of Frank Hudson, our quarterback and great drop kicker, chosen for the 3rd All-American team." Frank stood up, and everyone clapped loudly. "And Martin Wheelock, our tackle on the 2nd All-American team." Big Martin bobbed up and down quickly. "And Isaac Seneca, our halfback, for the 1st All-American team." There was even louder applause for Isaac. Mr. Warner then introduced all the other members of the team, and let me say in closing, he added, that we at Carlisle look at sports as one of the most important parts of our school's program. First, we have our varsity teams, and we have teams in all of our different classes for football and other games too, and sports are an excellent way to bring out the good qualities in young men and to develop good citizens. Jimmy's eyes were wide. "There's nothing I love more than sports," he was thinking. "If only I grow bigger. I'd like to play B. I'd like to be a varsity player like Chauncey or the Carlisle men. That fall, the Haskell football team was beating every school it played. It was Monday after their victory over the University of Missouri when Chauncey beckoned to Jimmy. Congratulations on the game, Jimmy said as he ran up. I wish I could have seen it. Well, we'll still have several games on our own football field this fall, said Chauncey, but I have some news for you. How would you like to play in a real game? Me? You bet, said Jimmy, grinning. The school has arranged a game for our younger boys against a team of Lawrence kids this Friday, and while you're not as big as some, still I want you to be a substitute in our team. How about it? Oh, yes, Jimmy's heart was thumping with excitement. Are you going to coach? Yes, said Chauncey. I'll come to your field after our practice is over this afternoon. Jimmy was there early, eager for action. Chauncey had chosen most of Ernie Treadow's team to play for Haskell. Of the smaller boys, only Jimmy was picked for the squad. He had to watch during most of the practice, and still he was thankful just to be a member of the team. Maybe I'll get to play part of the time, he thought hopefully as he listened to Chauncey. When Friday came, Jimmy was very proud to trot out on the fine new football field with the bigger Haskell boys. About half the school was on hand, sitting in the new bleachers. There was a cheering crowd from Lawrence, too. All the players ran and charged up and down the field for a few minutes to warm up, and then Chauncey led Jimmy and the other substitutes to the bench. The two teams lined up for the kickoff. On the field, the referee blew his whistle. Here we go, shouted Jimmy. How he hated to sit on the bench. Ernie kicked the ball far down the field, and the game was on. The first quarter was very close and hard fought. First Lawrence would gain, then lose the ball, and then Ernie and his boys would gain and lose the ball. Neither side could score. As the second quarter opened, Lawrence punted, and the ball sailed high in the air, but not very far. By the time Ernie had caught it, the Lawrence ends were right on him. They tackled him hard. Ernie went down. When he got up, he was limping badly. The Haskell boys and girls groaned loudly. He's our best player, thought Jimmy. I hope he isn't hurt. Chauncey went out to the field to talk to Ernie. He bent down and felt Ernie's ankle, and then he motioned for Jimmy to come in. Jimmy dashed onto the field. He looked calm, but he felt very excited. Here's my chance, he said to himself. But with Ernie out of the game, we'll have a hard time. Chauncey helped Ernie off the field, and the two teams lined up. On the first play, Alex King, the Haskell quarterback, called Jimmy's signal. Jimmy grabbed the ball and started around end, and his teammates Walter and Joe were making interferences for him. Walter blocked the Lawrence end. Jimmy cut around to the outside, still following Joe, and the Lawrence halfback and fullback dashed in. Joe blocked the halfback. With a quick twist of the body that he had seen Chauncey make many times, Jimmy dodged the fullback. Now only the Lawrence safety man was ahead of him. All the spectators jumped in to their feet. Come on, Jimmy, shouted the Haskell boys. Stop him, said Lawrence rooters cried. Jimmy dashed down the sideline at the top of speed, and the Lawrence quarterback angled over toward him equally fast. In a flash, Jimmy sized up the situation. He had me cornered, but I don't know what to do. He slowed down just a little, and the Lawrence boys slowed down too. Then he reached out to tackle, and Jimmy burst on speed, dashed right past him, and he felt the tackler's hands grabbing for him, but he shook it loose. Across the goal line he went, and the Haskell boys and girls whistled and cheered. Alex missed the try for a point after touchdown, but Haskell led 5-0. The new rules of 1900 allowed 5 points for a touchdown that year. On the rest of the half, Lawrence pounded at the Haskell line, trying to tie the score. When Haskell got the ball, Alex called for more end runs by Jimmy, then Joe, then Walter, but the Lawrence team had spread out to stop the wide runs, and Haskell couldn't gain. On the last play of the half, Lawrence sent his star halfback around in. Running harder, he got past the line, and he straight-armed Alex. Walter and Jimmy ran over to stop him. Walter had a clear chance to tackle him, so Jimmy slowed down. All of a sudden, the Lawrence boy dodged past Walter, and Jimmy was caught flat-footed. The runner was crossing the goal when Jimmy finally tackled him. Lawrence had tied the score. What was the matter there, Jimmy? Asked Chauncey as the team rested between halves. I was sure Walter had him, but nobody will catch me slowing down again, he promised himself. Don't take anything for granted until that whistle blows, Chauncey advised. Now in the second half, you better try smashes through the line. Lawrence is spread out to stop end runs. But it's so much easier to run around them, Alex argued. That's right, thought Jimmy. It's no fun smashing the line. Well, Alex, you're the quarterback, said Chauncey. I'll leave it up to you. All through the third quarter, the teams played evenly, and Alex tried one smash into the line, but Lawrence stopped him with no gain. So Alex went back to calling for end runs, and Lawrence stopped the Haskell runners every time. On the last play of the quarter, Jimmy tried again to run around. Two big Lawrence tacklers brought him down, and he felt a sharp pain in his ankle twisted under him. Uh-oh, if Chauncey notices, he'll take me out, Jimmy thought in alarm. He gritted his teeth, and he tried to act as if nothing was happening, and he rubbed his ankle while the team rested a few minutes between quarters. He felt more worried now about being stopped every time he tried to run the ends, and he wanted to make sure that he could make up for his mistake, but he couldn't get free of the Lawrence tacklers. Alex, he said, maybe Chauncey's right about the end runs. Don't you think we better try some more smashes? We better do something. The score is still tied. On the very next play, Alex gave the ball to Jimmy for a smash through the line, and two big Lawrence blockmen lined up. Well, here goes, said Jimmy. He ducked his head and charged into them, and they tackled him, but he was charging so hard they couldn't hold him, and Jimmy stumbled through for a 10-yard gain. What? That's just as much fun as running the ends. I guess it pays to listen to the coach. His ankle pained him badly, but he was still eager to carry the ball, and once again Alex called Jimmy's signal. He hugged the ball and charged forward. Nobody tackles Jimmy, he vowed to himself. This time he bounced off big Lawrence center, spun around and headed downfield. He was knocked off balance, but he gained another 10 yards before he stumbled and fell. Then Walter and Joe carried the ball, and right down the field they went. But then the Lawrence line closed up and stopped the Haskell charges at the goal. Let me take it, Jimmy begged. Alex called his signal. Jimmy charged for the line. Everyone was piled up in a heap. It was impossible to go through, and he thought, I guess there's no way but over. Charging with all his strength, he dived over the mass of struggling players. Hands grabbed at him, but he went right over. He landed with a thud and over the line for a touchdown. Jimmy was so excited he forgot to hide his sprained ankle. He hobbled around the boys, slapped him on the back. As they lined up for the try for the extra point, Solomon came dashing onto the field to take Jimmy's place. My ankle's all right, he protested to Chauncey. The way you charge into those big fellows, I don't want to take any more chances. Nobody wants to smash, but you're right. They're a lot of fun. Jimmy felt better. He watched his teammates score another touchdown to win 16-5.